In the Fallout universe, most vaults were designed to fail, but some didn't even make it past day one. These installations collapsed so spectacularly fast that their residents barely had time to realize they were already dead. With that cheerful note out of the way, let's talk about the vaults that turned into tombs before the radiation even settled. Vault-Tec's experiments ranged from psychological torture to biological warfare, but the truly disturbing ones were those where failure wasn't gradual. These weren't slow descents into madness or multi-generational nightmares. These were immediate catastrophes. Think of it like ordering a pizza and having your house burned down before the delivery guy even leaves the store. Except instead of pizza, it's your survival, and instead of a house fire, it's everything you know turning into a pressure cooker of death. Let's start with Vault 12 in Bakersfield, California. This one had a simple but devastating design flaw that killed its purpose from the moment the bombs dropped. The entire point of a vault is to keep the radiation out, right? Seal yourself underground, wait for the fallout to clear, emerge into the wasteland. Basic apocalypse survival, Vault 12's experiment. The door didn't close, not broken, not malfunctioning, deliberately designed to never seal properly. Vault-Tec wanted to study the long-term effects of radiation on a mostly isolated population, so they built a vault that let radiation pour in from day one. The residents of Bakersfield thought they were safe. They made it to the vault, they got inside, they watched the bombs fall on their monitors believing they'd survived. They hadn't. The radiation flooded in immediately. Within hours, everyone inside was exposed to lethal doses. But here's where it gets worse, because of course it gets worse. They didn't die quickly. The radiation levels were high enough to be fatal, but not high enough to kill instantly. So the residents of Vault 12 spent days, maybe weeks, dying slowly while locked underground with a door that wouldn't protect them. Their skin sloughed off, their hair fell out in clumps. They vomited until there was nothing left. And some of them transformed. The ones who didn't die outright became ghouls, smooth-skinned, radiation-soaked beings who'd lived for centuries in the ruins of what was supposed to be their salvation. The city of Bakersfield eventually became Necropolis, a ghoul settlement built on the corpse of Vault 12. So yeah, they survived, but calling that survival is like calling a car crash a successful trip because you technically arrived at the hospital. Alright, you did well sitting through that one. Unfortunately, immediate vault failures were more common than you'd think, and Vault 12 wasn't even the fastest collapse. Let's talk about Vault 70. This one's barely documented in the games, but the Vault-Tec records paint a picture of catastrophic failure measured in minutes, not days. Vault 70's experiment was simple: pack it with twice the intended capacity. The vault was designed for 500 people. They crammed in over 1,000. The door sealed. The bombs fell. Everything seemed fine for approximately 45 minutes. Then the life support system started screaming. See, vaults are self-contained ecosystems with carefully calibrated air recyclers, water purification, and climate control. All of these systems are designed for a specific population density. Double the people, and you don't just double the strain, you exponentially increase it because humans don't just consume resources, they produce waste. Carbon dioxide, heat, moisture, biological waste. Within the first hour, temperatures in Vault 70 spiked to over 90 degrees. The air recyclers couldn't keep up with the CO2 production. People started suffocating while standing in a crowded room, breathing air that was slowly becoming poison. The panic made it worse. Increased respiration, increased heat, increased oxygen consumption. By hour 3, people were passing out. By hour 6, they were dying. The oversight was fighting to manually override systems that weren't designed to be overridden. They tried opening interior doors to spread people out, but that just redistributed the problem. They tried shutting down non-essential systems to divert power to life support, but there wasn't enough power to divert. By the end of day 1, Vault 70 was a mass grave. Over 1,000 people suffocated or died from heat stroke in a sealed metal box underground. The vault security system logged the last signs of life at 23 hours and 17 minutes post-closure, less than 1 day. Vault-Tec's experiment in overcrowding concluded that yes, overpopulation is bad. Groundbreaking research, truly. Now here's a fun detail. The vault's security system kept running for decades, recording nothing but silence in a tomb filled with bodies. And if you think that's grim, hold on to your Pip-Boy, because Vault 27 makes overcrowding look like a spa day. Vault 27's experiment was similar, but with a twist. Instead of being overcrowded from the start, it was designed to never turn people away. No matter how many showed up during the nuclear panic, they had to let them in. First come, first served, no maximum capacity, no cutoff point. Just keep cramming people into the vault until there's literally no more room. The door closed with over 2,000 people inside a space meant for a third of that. The immediate aftermath was Vault Vault 70 on steroids. Life support collapsed within hours. But Vault 27 had an additional nightmare. Structural failure. The weight of 2,000 human bodies, the equipment they brought, the supplies, the sheer mass of humanity pressed into corridors and rooms never meant to hold them, it stressed the Vault's infrastructure beyond tolerance. Support beams buckled, walls cracked. In some sections, the ceiling began to sag. And remember, this is happening while people are suffocating and cooking alive in the heat. So you've got panic, you've got stampedes, you've got people crushing each other trying to reach areas with better air. The structural damage accelerated as people surged through corridors, causing more beams to fail, more collapses, more casualties. Vault 27 didn't just fail, it imploded. Parts of it literally caved in on the residents, burying them alive in their supposed shelter. The experiment concluded that there is, in fact, a maximum number of people you can shove into a confined space before physics intervenes. Another stunning contribution to Vault-Tec's research portfolio. Welcome home, Vault Dweller. Let's talk about Vault 95, because this one's failure was psychologically immediate, even if the deaths took longer to rack up. Vault 95 was advertised as a rehabilitation center for addicts. The residents were all recovering from various substance dependencies. They were told the vault would be a clean, supportive environment where they could rebuild their lives after the bombs fell. A fresh start in a world that would need recovering people to rebuild civilization. Inspirational, right? Here's the experiment. Vault-Tec secretly stashed drugs throughout the vault, in hidden compartments, behind false panels, tucked into maintenance areas, chems, alcohol, everything the residents were trying to escape. And the hidden stash was set to be discovered by a secret Vault-Tec agent 5 years into the vault's operation. But it gets better. Due to a scheduling error, or possibly because Vault-Tec's evil is only matched by its incompetence, the agent revealed the drug cache on day 1. Not 5 years, day 1. The bombs had barely stopped falling when this plant started distributing chems to a population of vulnerable, stressed, terrified addicts who just watched the world end. The relapse was immediate and total. Within hours, people who'd been clean for months or years were using again. The psychological collapse wasn't gradual. It was a switch flipping from fragile recovery to active addiction in the span of an afternoon. People who'd been supporting each other in sobriety were suddenly enabling each other's destruction. The community structure collapsed faster than the social order. By the end of the first week, Vault 95 had descended into chaos. Overdoses, withdrawals, violence over the limited drug supply. The mutual trust that keeps a vault society functioning evaporated the moment people realized they'd been deliberately set up to fail. The experiment proved that you can destroy a community's foundation by reintroducing the exact trauma they'd worked to overcome. Vault-Tec basically answered the question, can you weaponize addiction? Answer, yes, and it works great if you're a monster. The long-term survival rate of Vault 95 is difficult to calculate because survival is subjective when you're talking about people living in active addiction in a sealed environment. They didn't die immediately, but the Vault's purpose, its social structure, its reason for existing, all of that died on day 1. And to those of you who got this joke, you're welcome. To those who didn't, it's probably better that way. Moving on, let's discuss Vault 101, which technically didn't fail immediately but deserves mention because its failure was built into the opening protocol. Vault 101's experiment was simple, never open, ever. The Overseer had complete authority, and the prime directive was that the vault door would never unseal. This was a multi-generational experiment in isolated social development. The immediate failure wasn't mechanical or environmental, it was ideological. The moment that door sealed, the residents of Vault 101 were prisoners, not survivors. They just didn't know it yet. The psychological impact of never leaving hit different people at different speeds, but the seeds of the vault's eventual breakdown were planted the second that door closed, and the Overseer announced the true nature of their situation. See, people can accept temporary confinement. Can't leave during the radiation. Fine. Can't leave for 20 years while we rebuild. Challenging but acceptable. Can never leave ever under any circumstances, and your children can never leave, and their children can never leave. That's not survival. That's a life sentence. Some residents realized this immediately. The first attempted rebellion happened within 72 hours of sealing. It was crushed because of course it was, but the cracks in the vault's social contract appeared instantly. The experiment required total compliance with an inherently unacceptable premise. The vault didn't fail mechanically on day 1, but its psychological foundation was flawed from the moment of closure. The fact that Vault 101 lasted as long as it did is less a testament to the experiment's success and more a demonstration of how long humans can endure an untenable situation before finally snapping. But the failure? That started immediately. It just took time to fully manifest. Now, you know a vault's disturbing when even Vault-Tec seems surprised by how fast it collapsed. Enter Vault 8, which wasn't supposed to fail at all. Vault 8 was actually one of the control vaults, designed to function properly and release its residents to rebuild. No experiments, no hidden horrors, just a functional vault that would open on schedule. It failed anyway, not through malice, but through the chaos of nuclear war itself. Vault 8's location was Vault City, and the facility was supposed to seal with a carefully selected population of skilled workers, engineers, and leaders. Instead, when the bombs fell, the designated residents couldn't reach the vault in time. The roads were choked with traffic, communications were down. The people who were supposed to populate Vault 8 died in the initial strikes or the immediate aftermath. The vault sealed with whoever managed to reach it. Random refugees, people who happened to be close enough to make it through the doors. No skills assessment, no preparation, no social cohesion, just a panicked mob of survivors who'd never met each other and had no idea how to operate the systems keeping them alive. The immediate failure was one of community. These people weren't a society. They were strangers thrown together in a crisis with no leadership structure and no shared purpose beyond "don't die today." The first days in Vault 8 were marked by arguments over resources, territory disputes over quarters, and a complete lack of organization. Ironically, Vault 8 eventually succeeded. The residents figured it out, established a working society, and became Vault City. But those first days were a disaster. The Vault's success came despite its immediate failure, not because of careful planning. It's the apocalypse equivalent of failing upward. Alright, let's wrap this nightmare parade with Vault 76, which earns a spot on this list for a different reason. Vault 76 was designed to open 25 years after the bombs fell. It was a control vault, well-supplied, well-staffed, designed to release America's best and brightest to rebuild Appalachia. The failure? The timing. 25 years isn't enough. The soil is still poisoned. The water is still irradiated. The atmosphere is still dangerous. The wildlife has mutated into things that want to kill you. And Vault-Tec knew this. They knew 25 years was insufficient for any real recovery, but they needed data on early reclamation attempts, so they programmed Vault 76 to kick everyone out anyway. The moment that door opened and forced the residents into a hellscape that wasn't ready for human habitation, the Vault failed its core mission. These people trained for decades to rebuild civilization, and they were dumped into a world that wasn't ready to be rebuilt. The immediate failure was one of premise. The Vault succeeded in keeping people alive and preparing them, then failed by ejecting them too soon into an environment designed to kill them. Vault 76 didn't fail because of bad systems or evil experiments. It failed because Vault-Tec prioritized research over survival. The residents weren't meant to succeed. They were meant to provide data on what happens when you try to rebuild too early. They were guinea pigs with engineering degrees. Here's the thing about immediate Vault failures. They reveal the fundamental truth of Vault-Tec's operation. These weren't shelters. They were laboratories. The people inside weren't residents. They were test subjects, and the experiments were designed to generate results, not save lives. Every single one of these vaults could have functioned properly. Vault 12 could have had a working door. Vault 70 could have been limited to safe capacity. Vault 27 could have had admission cutoffs. Vault 95 could have actually been a rehabilitation center. Vault 101 could have had a reasonable opening timeline. Vault 76 could have waited another 20 years. These failures were engineered, deliberate, planned. The bombs didn't destroy these vaults. Vault-Tec did. They built tombs and called them shelters. They created disasters and called them experiments. They murdered their own people in the name of research that would never benefit anyone because the government funding them ceased to exist the moment the nukes launched. So yeah, these vaults failed immediately after the bombs dropped. But really, they failed the moment Vault-Tec decided human lives were less valuable than data points. The nuclear war just made it obvious. If you enjoyed this dive into Vault-Tec's greatest hits of immediate catastrophic failure and want to explore every Vault experiment explained, including the ones that took their time destroying people, click the video on screen, because there's so much more horror where this came from.